Welcome, Yamhill County, to Speaking Frankly. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, and our tagline is, "And how we doin'?" Today I have a very special guest, Jennifer Chapman, who's the candidate for Yamhill County Circuit Judge position number 2. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Jennifer, what made you decide to run for this important Yamhill County Circuit Court Judge seat?
This community means absolutely everything to me. I have lived in the community for over 14 years. My husband's very large family has been here for almost 40 years.
Wow.
And, you know, I've got 4 boys that are growing up in this community, and we're not going anywhere. I want to add something to this community, and for this particular spot, I feel like I have some really important qualifications that could benefit the community that I'm living in, and I want to be part of that experience.
So who is your campaign manager?
Carol Lagunas. She is a small business owner, and she's absolutely amazing.
I bet. So what is your background, and how has this background prepared you for this office?
Well, I have been a civil litigation attorney for the past 15 years. And so I have done a wide variety of different legal work. At the beginning of my career, I did debtor bankruptcy, I did family law, wills and estates, construction defect, personal injury. Then the next stage of my career, I did anything from punitive and remedial contempt, enforcement of child support orders, obtaining child support orders, litigation on behalf of SAFE Corporation, third-party claims. I did Department of Revenue tax work, enforcement of DHS claims, juvenile dependency claims.
Wow.
I could keep going on. Anything where the state might need to be a plaintiff in a case, I handled that. And I was in court probably at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Sure.
I'm not in court as much anymore. Now I do labor and employment law and general corporation law. And so I spend the majority of my time now in administrative hearings before administrative agencies and before the Court of Appeals and the Oregon Supreme Court. I do get in court, circuit court, a little bit, not as much as I'd like now.
Okay.
But I do get there. But I will tell you that I wish I knew now, or I wish I knew then what I know now.
Sure.
Because some of the things that I've learned in doing some of these other areas of the law would have been really valuable to me when I was in court as regularly as I used to be.
You also handle arbitration as well.
I do, that's correct.
Yeah, that's really important. All of these things really get you ready for this office. As far as your personal life is concerned, how do you see being able to switch over from an attorney to a judge, and what does that mean to you?
I've noticed throughout my career, especially towards the last few years, that I enjoy being that middle of the road person much more than I enjoy doing the advocacy work.
Okay.
I always tell my clients, I'm going to tell you what you have to hear, not what you want to hear.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think essentially that's what a judge has to do. You have to make decisions and make rulings and make findings that are going to make people unhappy. Right. And you have to be able to do that in a delicate way so that people still feel heard, but they feel respected and they understand, firm but fair. And so in a lot of ways, I think because the labor work that I have done is so relationship based, because I'm always having to communicate points to people that maybe don't want to hear what I have to say, I think it'll actually be a relatively smooth transition.
It's a very neutral position.
Very, very much so, correct.
So let's talk about some of the issues. Value of having a judge with civil experience. What is the difference between a civil attorney and a prosecuting attorney?
There are two main types of law. We have criminal law, so someone has been accused of committing a crime, a robbery, DUI, something like that.
Sure.
Those cases are handled by a prosecuting attorney who's representing the state, and they're representing the state's interest in obtaining a conviction. Then on the other side of that case, you'll have a criminal defense attorney who's representing the due process rights, the due process rights,
Right.
and the rights you have to be innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
Absolutely. And so you've got those two players in a criminal case.
Right.
In a civil case, it's not always the state on one side of the dispute. Oftentimes, it's two parents fighting about child support.
Sure.
It's business disputes. It's land use disputes. It's, I got into a car accident and it's your fault. You shouldn't have charged me that fee. You should, landlord-tenant issues.
Sure.
All of those other things, those are anything that doesn't potentially lead to a criminal conviction or to, jail, fines, probation. That's what we consider the civil world.
And the judge that you're trying to be elected to take his retirement place was a civil attorney.
Yes, that is correct. Judge Stone is the one who's retiring.
Right.
Amazing judge. A lot of people feel really, really positively about him. He was the only judge that we have right now that has extensive civil experience on the bench. We only have 4 judges in Yamhill
Right.
County, and they're all amazing. I can't speak negatively of any of them, but 3 of them are former prosecutors,
Right.
and they come from that extensive criminal background. And I think there's value in replacing Judge Stone with someone most like Judge Stone, and I believe that would be me.
I totally agree with that. Taking politics out of the judiciary, how do we do that?
It's really, really important to me that politics have nothing to do with our judiciary. And I feel like when you hire an attorney to give you advice on a case, you should be able to have the attorney spend time looking at the statutes and looking at the case law. You shouldn't have to hire an attorney to do a background check on the political leanings of the judge. And that is, I just can't tell you how important that is to me. I look at the law as a little bit of a pendulum. When people talk about, our Supreme Court is becoming more and more politicized, I tell them the answer to that is to put moderates in the judiciary, because what happens is you've got a pendulum, and if you start pulling the pendulum over here, you're inviting the other side to go here. And that's not good for our system. What you want, instead of the constant back and forth, which isn't good for business, it's not good for workers, it's not good for our citizens to constantly be getting whiplash as they're trying to figure out what's the law going to be tomorrow. It's a much better system, a much more stable system, if instead of the pendulum that way, you start picking judges that are right there in the middle, so that there's predictability in that system.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about homeless, poverty, and the lack of jobs in Yamhill County. What do you see from your seat?
A judge doesn't really have a lot of ability to make, there is no ability of a judge to really make policy decisions.
Right.
There's not a lot that I can do as a judge to combat the homeless population or poverty. What I can do as a judge is promise that whether someone's got a nickel to their name or $1 billion to their name, they're a person in my eyes. Everybody deserves to be treated the same in court. Everyone deserves to have respect. Everyone deserves to feel like at the end of the day, justice was served. Whether or not they agree with it, at least they know that if they're in my courtroom, they're going to be treated fairly. That is my goal.
Well, inclusivity is really important in this day and age, because there's so many people that feel like they do not have a voice.
I absolutely agree with that. And it's one of those reasons that I think it's important to have someone like me on the bench, because I've surrounded myself my entire life with people with differences.
Sure.
And different perspectives. And I think that those differences are really, they're really valuable. And I know that they've taught me a lot personally and professionally.
So value of being in this community for you. Talk about that.
At the end of the day, people want to feel heard, and they want to feel appreciated. They want to feel like they have been understood. It's really hard to fake that if you don't understand where they're coming from.
Exactly.
People see through, whether whether you've got 5 cents in your pocket or $1 billion in your pocket, people are really instinctive, and they really understand when someone is faking appreciation for who they are.
Acting as if, yeah.
Acting as if. And so there's value in being able to say, you know what, I've been there. I've got kids, it's hard. I've been penniless, it's hard. I've been someone that's been in trouble on the other side. No criminal charges, don't anybody think the wrong way.
Yeah, right.
But I have had my fair share of problems, and I understand. And if I haven't had problems, I've surrounded myself with people that have told me about how they've experienced those problems. I can relate to most of the people in our community. And the value of that when it comes to the courts and court efficiency is that as a litigation attorney, I will tell you, when I have a client that feels like the judge has just been off their rocker and not treated them fairly, that client wants to fight and fight and fight. They want to do the same action that they got in trouble for over again so that they can challenge the law, so that they can get a better judge. They want to go to the Court of Appeals. They want to go to the Oregon Supreme Court. There's a lot of money spent in that. In contrast, even when I've had clients lose, when the judge has been fair, I have seen the client say to me, you know what, if I couldn't win before that judge, I can't win before anybody. And it's over.
Right.
And they start following whatever the principle was that we got from that case. They don't go to the Court of Appeals. They don't start screaming and getting mad. And you're always going to have a little bit of that. I'm not trying to be naive and say that doesn't happen. But I will tell you that it happens far less frequently when people feel like they've been treated fairly. And the first step to feeling like you've been treated fairly is feeling like you've been heard.
So do you feel like sometimes the recidivism rate in our jails and prisons are due to the fact that maybe they felt like they weren't being heard and are repeat offenders?
I don't know that I'm the best person to make a policy prediction about that. I do believe in evidence-based standards.
Okay.
And I believe that, we really need to pay attention to what the evidence tells us. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some really good evidence that talks about what we need to do in some of those situations.
Sure. And the cost of going to court, it plays into our budgets per year and how much we extend ourselves out. When people do want to appeal a case, can that be very costly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what happens is, let's say that you want to litigate a landlord-tenant dispute. You can hire an attorney to handle the case for you. If the judge doesn't, and let's say that attorney is costing $200 an hour.
Sure.
You could spend $200 an hour having that attorney argue the merits of the case and be done. Or you could have the attorney spend $200 an hour arguing or explaining the law to the judge who doesn't have any experience with it.
Okay. And
then arguing the merits of the case, and then repeating the background of, oh, Your Honor, no, you can't do that. No, Your Honor, here's the, landlord-tenant 411. It can be really expensive to do that. If you don't have an attorney, it can be even more expensive because who's going to educate that judge in that case?
Right.
And so oftentimes what can happen is a ruling doesn't get, or I actually had someone come up to me and tell me about this particular situation. There was a ruling from a judge who didn't really understand the nuances of property law, of civil law. The judge just wanted to hurry along and get to the criminal docket because that's what that particular judge was comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And the decision was appealed to the Court of Appeals. That takes time. Once it got to the Court of Appeals said, I can't make a ruling on the merits of this case because the judge didn't make the necessary findings at the lower court. So before I can even touch the merits of this, I need you to go back to the circuit court. I need the circuit court to do what it should have done, frankly, at the beginning.
Right.
And then, depending on the ruling of that particular situation, you can come back to the Court of Appeals. That whole exercise added probably 2 or 3 years to the life cycle of this particular litigation. In our world, 2 or 3 years is real time, money, tension, efficiency. There's a lot of...
The stress level has to be incredible.
Absolutely. And sometimes these are, really important issues that are being delayed.
For a long time.
For a long time.
So you have an incredible son named Nolan with a prosthetic leg. How has this affected your life?
It's only enriched our life. Nolan is an amazing 8-year-old boy. We knew that he was going to need a prosthetic leg when I was 20 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
And he had his foot amputated at 10 months old.
Okay.
And he had the prosthetic leg by the time he was 1. And I will tell you, Howie, kids are so amazingly resilient.
Boy, howdy.
But what's been interesting about raising Nolan is that it's actually taught me to embrace our differences.
Yes.
Because one of the things that we have taught Nolan since he was a baby, we're not the kind of people that say don't stare, don't look. Every single one of Nolan's legs has some crazy pattern on it. He's had Star Wars legs, he's had Perry the Platypus legs, he's had train legs and cooking legs. And when people look at him, we've trained him, yeah, that's normal. They're going to look. It's different. Sure. And so he's gotten to the point where he's like, oh, you're looking at my leg here. You want me to show it to you? And so we have fun with it. It's at the point where it really is as impactful to our everyday lives as a pair of prescription eyeglasses.
And he's normalized to it now as well.
Absolutely. And we still have, you have to be able to see the humor in things. I've opened boxes at home and, oh, Nolan, we got your foot in the mail. We've caught, our older son using one of Nolan's legs as a fly swatter.
Talk about the photograph of the 5 prosthetic legs in the window.
Yes. So during Christmas last year, Bob, our elf, one of his pranks was that he took all of Nolan's former prosthetic legs, because you get a new leg every time you kind of change your clothing sizes, right? And Bob the elf decided to put those in the window of our house, and it's one of those really high windows, and we kind of left them there. So now when people come over to our house, if they don't know about Nolan's leg or if they haven't been there in a while, why are there legs in your window?
In different sizes.
Yes.
I'm surprised you haven't made them into planters or something for...
I'm a little sentimental.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So your other kids, the rest of the boys...
Yes,
Talk about them for a moment.
I have 4 boys all together. Caden is my athlete. He's 10, almost 11. Then we have Nicholas, who's 4. He just started preschool. And then we have Declan, who is 3, whose favorite movie is Boss Baby. And I'm pretty sure it's because he thinks he's the boss.
Yeah, the alpha dog. Yeah.
Yes, he's one of a kind.
So do you have a response regarding the rumor that you're owned by the union?
Yes, I do.
Please do.
I do. Anybody who would say that I am owned by the union has never worked with me.
Exactly.
And has never talked to anyone who has. I spend as much time telling the union and union members when they're wrong as I do fighting for them when they're right.
Yes.
That's why people respect me. I do not blow smoke. I call things like I see them, good, bad, or indifferent. So that's number 1. Number 2, The unions don't go to circuit court.
Exactly.
The disputes that unions file either in the private sector or public sector, and I've worked in both, those go through the State Employment Relations Board or to the National Labor Relations Board. Our state courts are not involved. Our unions, some of the unions have decided to support me, not because they think they're going to get anything out of me, but because they've seen how hard I've worked for them. They respect me and they want what's best for me. And they know that what's best for me is to give back to my community in an important way, like this particular position.
That's awesome. So what do you see as the differences between you and Liesl?
Liesl is a great lady.
I know.
I have no complaints about Liesl personally, but I think that this particular election is one in which we're going to have to decide as a society, do we value civil experience? Do we value our businesses, our child support matters, our family law matters? Do we think that those issues are important too? Liesl would make the 4th prosecutor on a bench of 4.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think that that's what we should have. I think there's value in having
diversity.
Some diversity and some balance on the bench.
Sure. Very good. What is the one thing that you would like the voters to take away from this interview today?
That I'm one of them. That I'm one of them. I understand and I get it. I don't think that I'm any better than anybody else. I think that transparency and integrity are absolutely important. And I wouldn't be in this race and I wouldn't be campaigning as hard as I am
right.
if I didn't believe in it. I'm not a politician.
I understand.
Campaigning is not fun. But
meeting people is.
I love the meeting people part. But it's hard work and it's taken me away from my family.
Sure.
And I'm only doing that because I truly believe that I would be the best, or that I am the best candidate for Yamhill County Circuit Court Judge.
So you talked really quickly about transparency and integrity, but would you talk about it both in your workplace and politics today?
What do you mean?
There are a lot of people that like to hide behind numbers and campaigns and such, and they don't like the transparency of giving the viewers and the voters the information to really know what they're doing. You're very transparent and you have a lot of integrity, and that is not always the case these days.
I think that it's as important for people to reach rulings that are just.
Yes.
That's really, really important. I think it's equally as important that people believe that they're obtaining justice.
Yes.
And the only way that I think a lot of people will feel comfortable with the rulings that are issued is if they understand and they truly believe that the judge is being fair and transparent. They're not skewing one way or
right.
the other. The perception of bias in our judicial system is just as important to avoid as actually reaching the right decision.
Right. So you now have a chance and an opportunity at this time to tell our viewers anything that you want to, and we have about four minutes. So what would you like to say to our viewers? And you can look into this camera and make an appeal for how come you're running.
Dear viewers, how you doing? Please remember to vote. This is a really, really important election. Whether you decide to vote for me or my opponent, just please vote. Take the time to read the voter pamphlet statements. Take the time to look at our websites, to check out our Facebook posts. Take the time to ask questions. The idea that a lot of people in the primary voted for other spots but didn't vote for the judicial position because they just didn't understand what a judge does, let's fix that. These local elections, quite frankly, are some of our most important elections on the ballot this year. And everything starts local. And so I just really encourage you to register to vote, get your ballot, make sure your address is accurate. Ideally, please vote Jennifer Chapman for Yamhill County Circuit Court Judge. Please make sure your friends vote Jennifer Chapman for Yamhill County Circuit Court Judge. But most importantly, just please vote for all of the positions. This is just too important a year to stay home.
Yeah. So, in having said that, it's really important that people go to the polls and make sure that they get their vote right. Don't forget to sign the outside of your envelope.
Sign your ballot.
Otherwise,
Sign.
it doesn't count at all. So that's really important as well. And she described to you that it's important for the local races. It's imperative that we get out in droves. People that haven't voted for years, I'm hoping that you check your registration, make sure you're still registered, get out there and vote, because this is really, really an important general election across the board for senators and all kinds of reasons. So Jennifer, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today, and good luck on election night. I'm sure that you've already got an idea of where you're going to be. Are there any upcoming town halls or anything that you're going to be doing?
We have a lot of forums coming up.
Okay.
We have one on September 27th at the Dundee Women's Club on Highway 99.
Yes.
We have the, I believe there's a forum on October 2nd in Newburgh.
Okay.
There's the NAMI forum debate on October 4th.
And that's in the Carnegie Room at the library?
That's correct.
Okay.
On October 9th, I believe there's a forum at the City Club at noon. On October 11th, I believe there's a forum at the Kiwanis Club here in McMinnville.
The noon Kiwanis.
The noon Kiwanis.
Right.
And then October 30th, the Newburgh Chamber of Commerce is hosting a forum.
Very good.
So there are lots of good opportunities for the voters to get out and meet the candidates. And
I'm
make
sure
a
you love the meet and greets.
I love meeting people.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really encouraging to meet so many different people, because what I'm finding is that there are so many different groups of people that have really embraced my campaign.
Yes.
And I love seeing the energy and the passion. I love it when people say, I haven't voted in 10 years, but Jen, I'm going to vote for you. I just think that kind of energy is the kind of energy that we need in these local races.
Well, I bet you find that there's a lot more commonality between every group than you thought.
And you know what that commonality is? People care.
Yes.
And I think that unites us as a nation more than anything else.
Yes. Well, Jennifer, it's been a pleasure to have you on today, and best of luck during the election. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, Howie.
And thank you very much for watching today, and have a great day. And be sure and get out and vote.